the last video, we looked at the tools and methods a farmer would use for preparing the soil. So what is the next step? The next step in our video when we were looking at growing a tomato plant was to sow the seeds. So before we sowed the seeds, we actually cut the tomato into thin slices to even get the seeds. So in this video, we are going to look at important things to remember when actually collecting the seeds, when deciding what seeds to sow. We will also look at things that are important to keep in mind when actually sowing the seeds in a large scale. So let's look at the first point, right, which is how do you decide which seeds to sow? So there are two things that somebody has to look for before deciding if a seed is good. So the first thing is just the seed quality. You want to make sure the seed is not damaged. So when we were cutting that tomato into thin slices, we were very careful not to damage the seed. And the second thing is the variety of the crop. In our case, we explicitly picked seeds from that tomato because it was very tasty. So how does a farmer do these two things? So for the first thing, where the farmer has to decide if the seed is of good quality, they have a very simple test. What they do is they take a ball of water and they put the seeds in that ball, and damaged seeds are hollow on the inside. As a result, they'll just float up. So the farmer can just discard that and then use the rest of the good seeds for actually sowing. Damaged seeds are very expensive for the farmer because they'll put a lot of work and resources into it after sowing, but the crop would not come. So there won't be any good harvest. So it's very important to make sure only good quality seeds are used for the sowing. The second thing is the variety. So what do we mean by variety? Let's take wheat crop for example. So there are some variety of wheat crops where the yield will be huge, but at the same time they'll also need a lot of water. So a farmer who has a farm in a place where there isn't that much water available, then he or she should not be choosing that variety of wheat. So a farmer would choose the right variety that is fit for their own conditions in terms of water, weather, and the amount of pests and insects that are around. There is also another big field of research called genetic engineering, where people try to engineer the crop in such a way that you can bring out a lot of these good qualities. Like, can you actually have a crop which will take less water and give a large yield? So those are the things that are kind of researched on as part of genetic engineering. You can look at some of these videos which will have some more interesting information if you're interested. So let's go back. Now that we know what is important when selecting the seeds, what are the things you should keep in mind when you're actually sowing the seeds? Again, there are two things that we have to keep in mind. One is, after the seeds are sown, they should be protected, meaning they should be at an appropriate depth so that they are not washed away or eaten by birds or animals. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, in a farm, a farmer would be sowing a lot of seeds. So there would be crops right next to each other. So they have to make sure that when they are sowing, there is an appropriate distance between any two crops. If they are too close together, they'll start fighting for water, sunlight, and pretty much all the resources, the nutrients in soil. As a result, both crops will have a bad yield. So those are the things that we have to keep in mind as we sow. So let's do a quick recap. When selecting the seeds, two things to keep in mind. It should be of good quality and it should be of an appropriate variety. And when we are sowing the seeds, again, two things to keep in mind. One is it's at an appropriate depth so that it's well protected. And secondly, it should be at an appropriate distance from each other so that there's no overcrowding. So in our next video, we will go and see how a farmer would achieve these things when they are sowing. What methods would they use? What tools would they use?